Okay, good morning, or good afternoon, actually. Good morning to those who it is still in the morning for. We're going to get started. It's 3:01. I think people are still coming in, but we'll get going so we can take advantage of the speakers we have today. So welcome to the Atomic Allies webinar on expanding your outreach impact for Nuclear Science Week. I'm Caitlin Ricola. I work at the Nuclear Energy Institute, and I'm also a member of the U.S. WIN Steering Committee, and I will be moderating the conversation today. Before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. On the bottom of your screen, if you kind of hover, or it might be at the top, depending on your view, you'll see two functions, one for chat and one for Q&A. If you can use the chat for comments, conversation, technical difficulties or questions you're having on the webinar logistics side, that would be the place to put those. So in the chat function. And then we also have activated the Q&A functionality. And so we will be taking questions at the end of the webinar, and we can actually upvote some of those questions. So feel free to monitor what other attendees are asking about, and you can upvote those as they come in. Another note is that while the webinar is scheduled from 3 to 4, the speakers and myself will actually stay on until 4:15 to make sure we answer all the questions you have. So please make sure, if you have a question, we'd be happy to hear it and make sure we can answer it before we all let you go. Another housekeeping note is that this webinar is being recorded, and we will make it available to each of the organization's members after this webinar concludes. If you're uncomfortable being recorded, you can take action accordingly now or not participate. It won't record the people who are participating, just the content on the screen. Okay, so before we get started, just to answer that question, because that's important, and I'm going to get to that now, which is, what is U.S. WIN? Women in Nuclear. So who are the Atomic Allies and what are we doing here? I'm not sure if everyone still understands what the Atomic Allies do and why it was formed. So back in 2020, NAYGN, ANS, NEI, and US WIN signed a memorandum of understanding to memorialize our interest and desire to collaborate, share resources, and kind of expand the benefits that we can offer to all of our members, recognizing that there's a lot of crossover and that we have similar interests and desire to advance nuclear and also support our members' growth and education. So we formed that partnership in 2020. It's an informal group that we meet monthly. The 4 organizations have reps who sit on that, I guess, council, if you will, and kind of develop programming and ideas for how we can best serve our collective membership. So this webinar is born out of that collaboration. We realized all of us participate in Nuclear Science Week, and so this would be an easy way for us to share best practices, exchange information, share lessons learned, and really just expand what our members could do for Nuclear Science Week based on all of our collective experience. And so we've been meeting since 2020, and we're always looking for more ideas and more participation. So if you are a member of one of these organizations and you're interested in getting involved, please reach out to the organization you're a member of, and we're happy to take ideas and new ways to collaborate and kind of propel our groups forward. So with that in mind, let's turn to the program. So this is intended to help give you all those lessons and experiences that the different organizations from Atomic Allies have learned over the course of their years of programming and doing activities for Nuclear Science Week. Here are the speakers that we have joining us today. Representing ANS, we have Elizabeth Suby, representing the kind of role of what a teacher, what an educator, what the universities are working on, and as a parent. We also have Katie Muma from University of Wisconsin-Madison, representing ANS's Young Members Group. We have Katie Mitchell, who will be representing North American Young Generation, or NAYGN. I have Selena Smith with us from US WIN. She is with our Westinghouse chapter, and she's going to talk about some of WIN's activities. And then opening up for us today, we're honored to have Jennifer Hayden, who is the president and CEO of the National Nuclear Science and History Museum, which is the organization that puts on Nuclear Science Week every year. So I'm going to allow each of them to go in deeper about their who they are and what they work on, and make sure we maximize our time today. So we're going to turn right to it. So opening for us today is Jennifer Hayden, and I'm going to invite her to the stage and turn to her slides, and let's get started. Thanks, Jennifer.
Very good, Caitlin. Thank you so much. So I am, again, like what Caitlin had mentioned, I am the president and CEO of the National Museum of Nuclear Science and History. And I wanted to give a little bit of a background today about Nuclear Science Week and its relevancy and relationship with the museum. So I'm going to start off by giving just a brief background of the museum and who we are and how Nuclear Science Week came about. So you can go next, Caitlin. So the National Museum of Nuclear Science and History, we are located in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We are a 501c3 nonprofit institution, and our museum has been around since 1969. We tell the story of the atomic age, from early developments such as the Manhattan Project and Cold War to today's peaceful uses of nuclear technology such as nuclear energy, medicine, and space exploration. Next. Our museum is a very large institution with a 9-acre outdoor exhibit area because we have airplanes, missiles, military vehicles, even a nuclear submarine conning tower as far as part of our collection to the museum. This is a B-29 Super Fortress, so it's the same type of airplane as the Enola Gay. And again, when I said the Manhattan Project, that is very, very important to our mission. This is the same American flag that flew at Trinity Site in White Sands, New Mexico during the Manhattan Project, and we have casings of Fat Man and Little Boy. Next. In our 9-acre outdoor exhibit area, many people who had seen the movie Oppenheimer recently, this will actually look familiar. We have the world's only replica of the Trinity Tower in Heritage Park, which that was the tower that hoisted up the gadget in 1945 in White Sands, New Mexico, to test the world's first atomic bomb. We have a B-52B Stratofortress in Heritage Park. And then we also have an artist's rendition of what he believes the laboratories look like in Los Alamos during the Manhattan Project. He's the same sculptor who created Kryptos, found outside of CIA headquarters in Langley as well. Next. We have Oppenheimer's limousine that traveled back and forth between White Sands, New Mexico and Los Alamos. That is the nuclear submarine conning tower in Heritage Park. And we do have the largest collection of declassified nuclear weapons in the world here at the museum. Next. So history plays a very huge part for us, but so does science. So we incorporate science in a variety of ways through nuclear medicine exhibits, energy, and space exploration. A lot of hands-on engaging activities take place. The Palo Verde exhibit is very entertaining for us, and it allows people of all ages to come in and experience how many atoms does it take to split to electrify or provide electricity for a city. And next. These are just two very quick slides about a lot of the programs and events that we have. Whether they are culturally significant events, they are family or STEM-oriented events, we really focus on things to bring our local community and then our visitors from all over the world into the museum. And the next slide shows all of our different camps and education programs. Kiddos between pre-K and 12th grade really come in quite often following the Albuquerque Public School District break schedule, and then we have different variety of programs and events throughout the year. And next, we are going to go to Nuclear Science Week, and you can go ahead and flip to the next one that shows just a little bit about Nuclear Science Week. So Nuclear Science Week is a week-long celebration that really focuses on the contributions made by women and men throughout the world in nuclear every year. We did start this in 2019. It does happen every year on the third week of October annually. When I say we started this in 2009, this was my predecessor, Jim Walther, who was the CEO of the National Museum of Nuclear Science and History, who did decide, I want to get nuclear out to our community beyond the four walls of the museum. So at that point in time, he really worked with a lot of nuclear industry partners, including organizations such as ANS, nuclear energy companies as well, and came together to try to determine what Nuclear Science Week could look like. This began as almost a grassroots initiative where it began in Albuquerque that first year, and it has grown exponentially ever since. The museum, we are in charge of the International Steering Committee, which we have people from all over the world, as far as Canada, UK, Australia. At certain instances, there were people from Japan and Brazil, and we promote through all of the Nuclear Science Week social media platforms and the website. You can go to the next slide. This is it's just a screenshot of the front page of the Nuclear Science Week website as it stands now. I invite everyone to look at the website because it has so many different qualities and opportunities to learn a little bit more about Nuclear Science Week. Under National Event, it talks about San Diego, where the National Host City event is taking place this year. Under About, people can learn a little bit more about the history and where we have been, including in the past as far as National Host City events, and pictures from local events as well. Local events would be the area in which we invite everyone all over the world to provide information of what you are doing in your community. This will become populated between now and October 16th when it begins. And that will really show all of the different events, activities, programs that are taking place if you take the time to go in and upload some of your information. For educators, we have a lot of different resources, and we're always looking to grow if people have more information. But that is lesson plans and resources, oftentimes for educators of all different grade levels. Sponsors talk about many of the different sponsors for Nuclear Science Week and the National Host City event. And the news and Contact Us provides a lot of the information. If you are wanting to host a event, you can go to nuclearscienceweek.org under Contact and for the media. And that will provide not only the logo for you to use. If you scroll down, there is a brand guidelines document that gives you a little bit more information, but it also takes you to all of our social media platforms. We're always open to sharing everything that's going on really around the nation and around the globe. Next. All of these images are photos taken from various national host city events. And it shows a lot of the different types of things that and ways in which people celebrate Nuclear Science Week. You can do an expo, which is really just promoting your company with giveaways and talking about who you are. Sometimes it is an expo that has a little bit more hands-on engaging activities to engage the audience. Next. This is very similar to what we're hoping Nuclear Science Week in San Diego, the National Host City event, will look like. We are inviting people to come in and do very hands-on engaging activities. And these are the initiatives that really bring in a lot of students and scouts, more of the younger audience, and then family members as well. And then next slide. You can always do panels or speaking sessions. So this was, a lot of these photos were taken a few years back, whether you were in an auditorium or a university setting, and you could really have people come together to talk about the most relevant topics within nuclear. And then next, very popular, but sometimes not quite as easy, would be tours. So whether it was tours of a power plant or, in my case, the museum, our museum welcomes over 1,000 students, Title I students, to the museum during that week. We receive grants that pay for busing and admission to bring the students into the museum, and we do, again, hands-on and engaging activities. And these are some of the pictures, at least 2 of them are from the museum in the past, where we would really have the children come in and learn so much about nuclear. We focused since about 2018 on the 5 pillars of nuclear. And so that's something that we try to incorporate in every aspect. And when I say the 5 pillars, it's on our nuclearscienceweek.org website, but they are carbon-free energy, global leadership, transformative healthcare, innovation and technology, and then space exploration. And next, this final slide, as far as images, show a lot of what we did in Washington, D.C. for a few years in 2019 and 2021. So it could be really a gathering in a kind of a club bar atmosphere. The lower picture was on Capitol Hill, and then the upper right picture was our the DOE Millennial Nuclear Caucus. So we had a panel of people speaking about nuclear and the relevant issues. And next. So here, it's just a way in which you can become involved. One of the ways is, again, we do have an international steering committee that we met this morning, and we only have one more meeting this year before Nuclear Science Week 2023. But that is something that I have an email at the end of my slides showing who you could contact to get involved and just sit on the meeting. It's about 45 minutes to an hour to talk about what's going on and learn what's going on all over the world. Celebrating Nuclear Science Week in your community, again, it could look a variety of different ways, whether it's just maybe a Nuclear Science Week cake in your office kitchen, to a completely community-wide celebration like the SRS CRO celebrates in Georgia and South Carolina every year. Definitely share your local events on nuclearscienceweek.org just by clicking on local events. And then utilize the Nuclear Science Week logo. You definitely can do that. That's why we have that there. We want people to proudly promote Nuclear Science Week. If you are interested in the National Host City event, there are opportunities to host a booth in San Diego this year on October 11th and 12th. And you can go to the next slide. We did choose the 11th and 12th, even though Nuclear Science Week does start on the 16th. We are looking at this as a kickoff event. And next slide. The two main events for this will be a VIP reception for all of our sponsors and expo participants. That's at the Comic-Con Museum in Balboa Park. And then our main event will be the Nuclear Expo at Fleet Science Center in Balboa Park, which Fleet Science Center is the most well-attended museum in Balboa Park. We are welcoming the first 1,000 visitors into the museum paid for by Nuclear Science Week. So this will likely be one of the most well-attended Nuclear Science Week National Host City events that we've ever had. And we welcome people to attend. And finally, these are some of the emails for my team members at the museum who run Nuclear Science Week internationally. If you have more information or you'd like more information, you can reach out to myself. Sponsorships would be Jennifer Galloway. Nuclear Expo participants, if you're interested in San Diego, it would be Lisa Guida. And if you are at all interested, and I invite everybody to just sit in even one if you're interested, to join our International Steering Committee, which takes place one final time this year, I believe September 27th, and you would be able to reach out to my team member, Bernadette Robin. And that is all I have to introduce National Museum of Nuclear Science and History, as well as where Nuclear Science Week really began. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was great. And I really encourage all of the attendees to leverage the contacts here, especially to upload your local event. It's really quite powerful when you can see all of the different efforts that are going on around the country and show our collective impact. So now we will turn to Elizabeth. And again, we will be taking questions at the end. So if anything Jennifer noted was of interest, you want to learn more, please don't hesitate to ask a question. So Elizabeth Subi is with ANS. She's also a professor. And we are excited to hear from you. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Hey, thanks, Caitlin. Thanks, everyone, for having me. So I'm Elizabeth Subi. I'm an associate professor at the University of Texas at San Antonio. My home department is in physics and astronomy, which is what I got my PhD in, and I also have a joint appointment in mechanical engineering. I was asked today to present on the parent's perspective, but as an ANS representative and as also the chair for our Diversity and Inclusion Committee, I wanted to share with you some of the resources that ANS has on their webpage. So ANS put together this slide, and I believe Caitlin will be posting this content, and so these are some hyperlinks to a handful of different resources. I think for me, as I look at the ANS website, where are some great spots for me to go when I think about outreach into the community. I'm a mother of a 7-year-old daughter, and so I initially think about elementary school outreach, talk about middle school outreach, and then outreach within the community. So a handful of these resources can be helpful if you're looking at, you have students perhaps that are in undergrad or graduate school looking at careers. So there's the Pathways to Nuclear Careers program. There's a lot of different nuclear science activities under those pages. They have some virtual field trips. There's also the Nuclear Ambassador programs. And then there's some of these nuclear discovery kits. And those are kits where you can actually go onto ANS's website, And for a given program, you can request materials to be sent to you for different outreach events. Going to the website, they also link to Nuclear Science Week. But if you go into the website and you look at classroom resources, down at the bottom, they actually have elementary, middle school, and high school. Caitlin, you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so here are some of those educational resources, and it kind of breaks it down by what type of event or what type of outreach activity that you're looking to do. I know for me personally, looking at elementary school outreach, at least in the state of Texas, any outreach we do in our public school systems needs to fall under the Texas curriculum. And so it has to be something that they're actually covering in their science classes during that academic year for the students. So I reach out to my daughter's teacher every year and offer, say, hey, I'm a physics professor. I'm happy to come talk to the class about whatever fits into your curriculum. And they may not, immediately know how to connect nuclear to maybe what they're doing in first grade. So some of the digital lesson plans that A&S has, one's Amazing Atoms and the other is Exploring Energy. So you can break it down to that more elementary level that's more applicable to maybe a general elementary school science class. Caitlin, you can go ahead and go to the next page here. Looking to more formal outreach activities, so maybe going out in the community, we were just talking about busing to different events. There is the George A. Ferguson Motivational Grants, which is a NEED grant. I mentioned I'm the chair for the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and these are one of the programs that we actually review for. And these are up to $5,000 in grant funding. And the goal of this is that they're used to purchase resources to teach science and math, ideally geared towards nuclear. And so you can apply for one of these to maybe stock a classroom demo or a demonstration that you want to go into multiple classrooms and do. One of the key things that I want to note about this is we are really focused in getting into underrepresented and underserved communities. And so when you go to write that grant application, think about the community that you're going into, where is there the most need? And this is an opportunity for funding for a little bit broader outreach events. And Caitlin, you can go on to the next slide. Yeah, so outreach in the local community. So as a mom and a full-time professor with the research program, there's not a lot of free time. But of course, I'm always happy to do experiments for my daughter and her friends and even her school. So this is an example where last year, nuclear didn't really quite fit the curriculum that they were doing in first grade, but they were going over the scientific method. So what we did was we did an elephant toothpaste demo, which is super fun and super messy. If you haven't done one before, the kids love it. Have lots of trash bags and tablecloths around for cleanup. But I brought in one of my graduate student researchers, Giselle. She's pictured up there in the upper right. And we did probably 15 different elephant toothpaste demos where we were mixing colors, changing amounts of ingredients, and we would ask the students each time to come up with a hypothesis. My daughter says that's her favorite part, is coming up with a hypothesis for the scientific method. And then we would do our experiment, and then they had to observe what happened. So they would need to tell us what was going on, what colors were made, was it a tie-dye color? And then we did the next one, and they reformulated their hypothesis. So even if you can't quite get into the classroom with just that heavy-hitting nuclear science that you want to do, this is a great way. Another demonstration that I've done it was a middle school girls event, is I actually brought my pancake detector from my lab. So we work with uranium. So we have lots of survey wands and counters, and brought that. And I brought 2 different types of smoke detectors. So if you don't know this already, some of the smoke detectors actually have a radiological source, and then the others are more of a photodiode type effect. So you can, they don't tell you to do this on the packaging, but you can take those apart and you can actually have the students count, right? So you turn that counter up on loud and have them count the different disintegrations there. So trying to show that nuclear is safe, it's in our everyday lives, and have some really fun interactive demonstrations that you can have with different sets of school groups, even if they're not quite at the academic stage where they're ready for some heavy hitting nuclear science. So that's all I have from the parent perspective. There's a ton of A&S resources, and I'm happy to relay anyone to folks within A&S that can help you more with finding just the right resource for the outreach event that you're looking for. Or if you're interested in the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, We're an active committee within ANS. We collaborate a lot with Atomic Allies, and we're always looking for new people with lots of fresh energy that are looking to do, yes, outreach events, but then also other programming for ANS as well.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That was great. And ANS really does have so many resources. So take Elizabeth up on her offer to connect you with the people who could best get you that information. And just specifically a comment about your experiment, which is great. It's a really creative way to fit into what's approved within the state system, but make sure that especially the girls in the room are seeing women in STEM doing and executing these experiments. We know that girls at a young age make a decision about participating in STEM or not to. And so your experiment here, I'm sure, was a great example to all of the students. So thank you for your work on that.
Thanks, Caitlin.
Okay, so next we're going to turn to US WIN, speaking of women and girls, and we have Selena Smith with us, who is from our Westinghouse chapter. So Selena, take it away.
Thank you, Caitlin, and thank you, WIN Communications Committee, for allowing me to represent WIN today. My name is Selena Smith. If you go to the next slide, I am a senior engineer at Westinghouse Electric Company. I have been involved with the leading group committee for Westinghouse Women in Nuclear Pittsburgh since 2017. And I mostly, in my professional job, I mostly do license renewal, radiation fluence analyses. But I love to do outreach, and so right now I'm the co-chair for public outreach for Westinghouse WIN Pittsburgh. Next slide. So to tell you a little bit about our chapter, we are a pretty large group. We have 105 members, and just in the last quarter, 42 of them were active in the different activities that we're holding. So we get a lot of help with putting together some of our outreach events. During my time at helping with outreach events and being the co-chair for public outreach, we've won back-to-back chapter excellence awards in public outreach. And that can be attributed in part to exceptional leadership, but you really have to credit the members, our chapter members, because they're the ones who are passionate about the outreach that we do, and they step up year after year to help us administer these events. Next slide. So part of the success, and you'll hear about some of the events we do, but part of the success of our public outreach programs can be attributed to the structure of our chapter. We're a highly structured chapter. When we created this structure, it was modeled after the 3 pillars of women in nuclear at the time. And what's good about this structure is when you go and you run to be elected, for instance, for professional development, you know what the expectations and roles that you're going to be defined or you're going to be filling are going to be. So having a concrete structure like this, there's no guessing games. You know what you're supposed to do. Next slide. Now, I'll talk about our programs. What I like to call our marquee program is our Introduce a Girl to Engineering program. The purpose of Introduce a Girl to Engineering, which we call IGE, is to increase the number of girls who pursue STEM careers after high school, especially engineering careers. We've been doing this 20 years, we've never missed a year, and you can see that we've served a lot of students over those 2 decades. And so that begs the question, how do we get such buy-in from the schools to bring their students to our facility and for these events? And I would recommend, if you're going to do an event like this, what you need to do is put the school's needs above your organization's needs. Just like Elizabeth was talking about, what you're doing in your outreach programs has to fit within what the school's goals are. Excuse me. So the schools in my area have 2 main priorities for the 10th and 11th graders that we are targeting. They are careers, and hands-on, hands-on, hands-on. And so we have specifically tailored our program to reinforce the concepts that these 10th and 11th graders are learning in school, and make sure that they spend most of their time in our facility doing hands-on workshop experiments, and things like that. So what we do, we talk to them about engineering disciplines like electrical, chemical, nuclear, of course, and then we run them through a series of workshop experiments. So these are hands-on activities. One of them, for instance, is statistical half-life activity. And we probably have all done some version of this activity where you have, you know, some pennies or some M&Ms, and you take away half each half-life. But what we do with this one, in order to reinforce what they're learning in school, we talk about the standard deviation of the population of pennies throughout the many different groups that we have, because each activity may have 7 or 8 groups. We'll talk about the standard deviation of a population, the distribution, or what the standard deviation tells you. We form a hypothesis and we gather data to support that hypothesis or not. We talk about how to plot data in a graph. And we also talk about what we expect the shape of the curve for that data to be. And so these are concepts that they're going to be learning in school at some level. Another activity we do is an electromagnet challenge. For this one, we're hands-on. We give them tools, we give them gloves, we give them goggles, and we really make them build their own electromagnet with the minimal input on how to do it from us. We encourage them to assign roles to each other. So one could be the manager, one could be the project engineer and keep track of costs. Another could be the senior engineer who's doing the most of the work. And we really challenge them to, they get very frustrated during this activities, and the teachers love it. So, and then another important aspect of doing a program like this is gathering feedback. Not only the students' feedback and the teachers' feedback, but also the volunteers' feedback. Over the time we've been doing this, we've been able to improve the quality of our program year over year. And it really comes back in the feedback from the teachers. Next slide. Can you go back to that slide, Caitlin? So I want to talk about the Teacher Continuing Education Seminar really quickly. This is a program that we've done the last 2 years in collaboration with Beaver Valley WIN. And we do this as a community service. So there's no charge for the teachers. We give them 2 days of remote seminars because that's what fits best into the teachers' schedules. And then we follow it up with a tour at the Beaver Valley Nuclear Power Station. So this is another way, if you can collaborate with another group, that you can really make an impact for the community. Next slide. Now, we are a large chapter, but I love it when the lights go out. We are a large chapter, but you don't have to be a large group or a large chapter to make a big impact in your community. In between the large Introduce a Girl in Engineering events and things, we do a lot of smaller events. I think Nuclear Science Week is the perfect time to do a career panel, because like I said, schools are focused on careers in those high school years. You can do those remotely. The last one we did had 15 schools in the local area, students called into it from. Another thing you can do is invite schools to visit your site and job shadow for a day. So these really fit in, and they're small things you can do throughout the year. Next slide, Caitlin. So these STEM outreach events, they can seem very time consuming, and sometimes they might seem like they are a distraction from the real work. But really, doing STEM outreach is a win-win for both the company and for the individual, which I'll elaborate on in the next slide. So for the company, having your employees and, sponsoring these outreach events can really benefit you, because we all want to hire the best people. And doing local community STEM outreach events, number one, it lets students and young people in your local community know that you're there. They might not have known that Westinghouse was there and that we design nuclear plants. It also can get them interested in these STEM careers, and hopefully they'll be the future workforce that you're going to hire. Programs like IGE help enhance workforce diversity goals. And then you're also able to, your employees can get that sense of satisfaction that they've been able to help these students. Further, if you're taking pictures during the events and your descriptions of the events, these can be leveraged by the company in, company blogs or social media. Next slide. For the individual, in my opinion, there are endless benefits. From my perspective, I'm from Ohio. When I moved to Pennsylvania, the only person I knew was my husband's aunt, right? So, of course, I met people at work, but I started, after a year or two here, I started to volunteer for organizations outside of work that I was passionate about. One of them being Women in Nuclear, and some other community organizations. And doing that allowed me to not only make friends at work, but also to make friends outside of work. So in that way, I've really expanded my network in both places. My husband likes to tell me that I never stop moving because I'm always doing something for someone, but it doesn't make me feel like I have less time. And I think it's because I'm more productive because I know that I'm going to get to go volunteer on Saturday with this organization or that. Further, for me, volunteering, especially for STEM outreach, it allows me, one of my passions is to make sure that kids who look like me see people who look like them in the role that I am in as a senior engineer or a leader in Women in Nuclear. And so it really gives me a deep satisfaction that I've, this purpose for why I volunteer for these events. Next slide, Kate. Now, if you are wondering how to get started, or maybe you just want to improve your program or add activities, the Women in Nuclear site is a great place to start. So you can go to winus.org and visit the outreach library. Now, if you do you want to start the video, Caitlin, if you click on it. So at the top of the page, there's an All Resources tab. If you don't see the All Resources tab like it is here, I really encourage you to join US WIN. There is no charge to join. And
sorry, Selena, the video's not playing. It might be my internet, but we can make it available after.
Okay, that'll be great.
Sorry about that.
There's no cost to join WIN, and the benefits of being a member of Women in Nuclear really go far beyond just one library. So I really encourage you to join. So you'll navigate to the All Resources tab, and under that tab, you will see a link to the resource library or outreach library. There are lots of different activities that have been submitted by members of US WIN. These are tried and true activities. And then when you click on one of the activities, you'll get a summary or a description of the idea. And a lot of the activities have a reference that you can open up and read, the procedure for that activity and best practices. In addition, if you have ideas or activities that you've done that have been really successful, I definitely encourage you to submit those ideas to the outreach library. My chapter has recently submitted several ideas to the library, and we were impressed by some of the other ideas that were on there. So we'll definitely be incorporating those. And you can go to the next slide. So I definitely encourage everyone to get out there for Nuclear Science Week, volunteer in your community. Hopefully you're doing STEM outreach, and in the process you get to talk about nuclear power, which we all, or nuclear technology, which we all love. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Selena. And sorry about that. As soon as we got to the video, it's torrential downpouring here. So it might just be my internet's unable to open it, but we will make the video available so you have instructions on how to access US Win Outreach Library. It's really is a great resource. We've worked on it for a long time to make sure that it's meaningful and has a benefit. Okay, so next we're going to turn to NAYGN. And so I'm going to invite Katie Mitchell to join us. And Katie, take it away. I'll turn to your next slide.
Awesome, thank you. So a quick overview, NAYGN, our overall goal is we're developing leaders to energize the future of nuclear. So I am our public information officer. And so with that, a big thing we do is sponsor outreach events for our chapters to participate in. So this year, our biggest thing is we are going to use Nuclear Science Week to kick off our essay contest. So we're kicking this off October 16th. It's going to go through December 15th. And during this time, any high school student from 9th to 12th grade can submit to us a well-researched essay on the given topic regarding nuclear energy. And so with that, we will have a grading criteria and we will give prizes and recognition to the students with our top essays. So this is our annual event that we are trying to educate and inspire students to get energized about nuclear energy and hopefully then pursue it in college. And then next slide. The other event is we're bringing back our postcard push days. So this year we're going to do a virtual postcard push day Wednesday during Nuclear Science Week on October 18th. So this is, we're going to invite all of the Atomic Ally members and NAYGN chapters to post a provided graphic on social media. And then we're going to ask you to use hashtags and tag your representatives. And this is, we're trying to get a big presence on social media as a unique way to contact our government officials to say, hey, nuclear is a big thing, people support it, people like it. So that's our two big events that we're going on during Nuclear Science Week. So and that's all I had.
Thank you, Katie. And how can someone, before I let you go, because I know you might have to, how can we have people participate in the postcard push day, or if they have a student they know who would like to write an essay, what's the best way to contact?
Yes, that is a good question. You can email pi@naygn.org.
Okay,
With all of that information.
pi@naygn.org. Great. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to introduce ANS's YMG member, also Katie. We have a theme going on, Caitlin, Katie. So Katie, take it away.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm here to talk a little bit about what students can do, and going last is great because I can start by saying, students, you can do all of the things that have been mentioned previously. So having tables at your university, having seminars, panels, participating in the postcard push, things like that. You can do all of that. But also, I wanted to speak a little bit about social media because students are often more digitally native, more experienced with social media, and this is a great way to reach beyond just your local community, to reach a wider group of people who may be even less familiar with nuclear than your local community around a nuclear facility. So I always try to tell students that you have an incredible power that you may not recognize, which is that everybody loves students. And also, you do not necessarily have an institution who has guidelines or requirements or wants you to present yourself in a certain way. So you get to decide what you want to talk about. You get to push the envelope of what outreach has looked like in the past, try something new, try a new platform, try a new way of connecting with the audience. For people who may be users of social media, consumers of social media content, but maybe less familiar with being on social media. I have some tips and tricks for that because lots of us may spend time on social media but may not be always putting posts out or making a dedicated push to put content out in front of a general audience. So the first thing is to think about a little bit about who you are as a student. You're developing your interests. You're finding the parts of nuclear that are interesting to you. And I encourage you to make that the framework of what you start sharing with the audience. So for me, especially when I was an undergraduate student, I got really interested in the nuclear fuel cycle. So I started, as I was learning, turning around, digesting that content, and then pushing it out there to the general audience to talk about what is uranium mining, how has it changed from when we first discovered fission and started using uranium and nuclear technology in the early days to what it looks like now, or on the back end, how do we manage radioactive waste, things like that. And as a student, you're learning this stuff, so it's a perfect opportunity to turn that around and not just spit out things as you have learned them in a highly technical format, but to practice taking that information, distilling it down to the most basic levels, to the amount of information that's necessary to reach a public audience. I would also encourage everybody to, if you're going to be putting out content on social media, to pick a few platforms that you are most comfortable with. I find often that when somebody starts getting into sharing content on social media that they are often trying to hit Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Twitter/X and LinkedIn and Blue Sky and, oh my gosh, all the other ones you could possibly imagine. And the reality is that you're probably not going to craft perfect posts for every single platform. So if you spend a lot of your own time on Instagram and you're not really on TikTok, then I encourage you to pick just one or two platforms that you already have an innate sense of, these are the posts that do well there, and then try to mimic that with your own experience in the content you're developing. One more thing is that because we're having this webinar now, like a month before Nuclear Science Week, I encourage you to think about planning out the kind of content you want to share in the same way that you would plan a physical event. You know, October 16th is going to be just another week. You're going to have your regular deadlines, maybe even midterms, whatever. So if you start by preparing now, thinking about the kinds of things you want to put out, finding the kinds of images, or preparing the information you need to make a video now, then it makes it much easier to push that stuff out when you make this one big push when everyone around you is also making a push. One more thing to think about as students, you do have allies, even if you may have not interacted with American Nuclear Society, even if you may be new to Women in Nuclear and AYGN, you may have local nuclear facilities. I encourage you to reach out to them, to work with your department or other students to coordinate your efforts so that you can all boost each other. Because we're all doing this one big push at the same time and hopefully making our collective voices rise up and sort of break through to a general public, you want to make sure that you're participating in that ecosystem, and as you share and boost other people's content, hopefully they'll notice you even if you're relatively new to the social media and the outreach game. So definitely participate in that ecosystem, online and offline. And all right, those are my main tips for doing outreach on social media.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, so we have now gotten to the portion where I would invite everyone to turn their camera on from the speakers. I'm going to go to one last slide that shows some of the contact information for each of them, and I'm sure they would be happy to hear from you all on any question you have after this. But we are here and we do have time. We did that in record time. We have time for questions. So the first one in the Q&A, and again, please feel free to ask questions. There's no, bad question, or we're happy to answer anything you have, is how do I know what local community outreach events are happening in my area to go and volunteer at? So I think I'll kick that to Jennifer first, since she has a website that collects some of that information that might be possible to see. So Jennifer, when people upload those local events, does it have a location tied?
It does. So you always can visit nuclearscienceweek.org, and that's hoping that your local community members did post it there. If not, I think really going back to what Katie had mentioned, so much with social media, so many people, especially with Nuclear Science Week, really promote it and promote it well. So checking out your different organizations locally and their social media or even their websites. And who knows, if no one is celebrating it, it may be you starting it off in your own community. You're the first one doing it. So it really just kind of depends where you are and what other organizations are within your community. You can always also reach out directly to the organizations or companies, especially if it's ANS, WIN, NAYGN, any of those, and then maybe go to the companies after.
I'll just open that up for anyone else who might have an idea or suggestion on finding local events.
I would say, checking in if you have an ANS local chapter, especially student chapters, they're usually informed, if not leading the charge of what's going on. Here in San Antonio, at least at UTSA, there's not a huge cohort of faculty that study nuclear science, so I'm one of few. So, the things that we're going to try is, maybe see if we can stream Oppenheimer, maybe have a panel. We have some folks in policy that are really interested in nuclear science policy. So maybe holding a forum through Model UN. So there's a handful of things you can do. So if you're students, maybe reach out to your faculty and ask for help and see if they have some ideas. Reach out to local ANS chapters, or think of a cool idea. Don't take on too much all at once is maybe my advice there. But find something simple and fun that you can engage as many people who are interested.
And I would say the same for NAYGN and WIN. Their local chapters also have the public outreach email that I dropped in the chat for NAYGN. I'm sure Katie could help connect you, and myself or Selena can connect you with a chapter that might be local to you. And even if you're not a member of that particular chapter or organization, I think it's a more the merrier kind of attitude. And so we can connect you where those people are. Selena, this question is, I think, for you, but we'll open it to everyone. So she loved hearing about your promotion of engineering as a career field. Which group or organization or place, entity kind of promotes some of the other positions in nuclear? I have a particular interest in promoting and encouraging girls to explore the craft opportunities, mechanical, electrical, instrument in the industry. And before I open that up, Atomic Allies is actually interested. We're kind of in the idea formation of how to best connect with people who are at community colleges or trade schools, or even in high school, not yet, maybe those 11th and 12th graders, to get them more into those fields. We know that that's an aspect of the workforce that's in dire need of more participation. And so we're interested if anyone has good ideas on how to best engage with those communities, but I'll open it to Selena and then the rest of the group.
Well, my recommendation would be to look to your local schools. A lot of the schools, at least in my area, they are really strongly trying to emphasize what we call VOTEC, basically, which would be kind of the alternative to going through a 4-year college degree. You could do a vocational degree, in high school, and then go straight into that field after high school. So one way might be to go into the schools and try to go into your VOTEC school and try to talk about the opportunities that are available in the nuclear industry, because we need those specialists to come and work for us in nuclear later on. Another way would be to, if you are, especially if you work in a plant, I know they have requirements maybe for a 2-year degree or, you know, whatever their requirement is, and they're really looking for people who are mechanically inclined. And so they might be a good organization to partner with to get students, young people interested in and taking up mechanically inclined trades.
Thanks, Selena. Anyone else want to talk about engaging with those communities? Okay. It's a difficult one because I think we tend to focus a lot on the university level, but there's so many opportunities in nuclear that are in the VOCHEC, as you noted, that we're trying to connect with. Next question here is, when you are prepping for an in-person event, how do you prepare the audience members who are not supportive of nuclear? I'll just open that up.
I can speak to that on a couple of different ways. As a nuclear museum, our whole mission is nuclear science and history. We've had a few instances of mostly peaceful protesters. When we erected the Trinity Tower replica, that was something we had local people within the area who were affected by the testing in 1945, their relatives. They came and did a peaceful protest, and we welcomed them into the museum, and they just wanted to be heard as well. So when media were here, they were able to speak about their how they look at that part of history, in addition to us talking about the artifact being erected. When it comes to Nuclear Science Week events, we've had the national hosting of it in a number of places that weren't really pro-nuclear. One in 2014, I believe it was Seattle. We, going even in California, we're wondering, you know, how is that going to look? We're always open to inviting people in. In Seattle, we've never had any instances where there have been protests during Nuclear Science Week or anything like that. But we did prepare ourselves. We did have security at the venue in some of the different locations that we've had. If we needed someone to, you know, be respectfully escorted out for anything. But generally speaking, it's an open invitation to anybody. This is the time where we invite people to come and learn and draw their own conclusions. So please come be a part of this event, walk around, learn about what all of the industry partners are doing. If there were panel sessions, please come and listen to what is being said. And so it's definitely always welcome to all, but we've never had any unfortunate situations in the past 14 years that I've been involved with Nuclear Science Week.
And I would
can
just
add a little
that,
bit.
Oh, go ahead, Katie. Go ahead.
Yeah, I find often people have concerns, or maybe they phrase things in ways that are immediate reaction to, especially coming from engineering, maybe that's factually incorrect or that's a misrepresentation or something. And so there's this natural inclination to, when somebody shows up and has those views or has those concerns, to sort of just push back and be like, you're wrong, that's incorrect, I disagree. But I encourage you to recognize that people have concerns, and to start by just validating. You don't necessarily have to say that people are correct, but to say, I totally understand being concerned with the long-term future of the waste that we produce of all kinds on this planet. Luckily, we have some really great strategies for managing the radioactive waste that we produce. And here's some of our plans, and here's some of the things we've learned through science and studying that. So to start by validating people's concerns, finding a way to agree with them. If somebody stands up and says, I'm an environmentalist, so I'm anti-nuclear, you can say, hey, I really care about the environment too. And actually, that's one of the things that led me to become a nuclear engineer for these reasons. And so to start by easing into it with connecting to them, with validating their concerns, recognizing that they often want to be heard, as Jennifer said, and then sort of gently pushing in whatever your immediate engineer brain reaction is to whatever they wanted to share or ask about.
Katie, you took the words out of my mouth. That was what I was going to say. That's a great approach, a great way to help a conversation.
Yeah, I really want to, Katie, that it's a really great way to put it. And I think, one of the challenges we have as scientists and engineers is we want to go into every conversation fully prepared, like we're walking into a defense, right? And so I would say, don't let those thoughts distract from what all you want to make your event, right? So try not to focus so much on what if this goes wrong or what if someone says this. Try to prepare for that, have a little backup slide deck, have some references you can point them to, so that, like Katie said, you validate their concerns, but then you also educate them on, what the current state of knowledge is there. But we've held events with ANS, and actually not on nuclear topics, but on diversity, equity, inclusion topics, where we were concerned we were going to have people that were adamantly opposed or very skeptical of what we were saying. And then we'd spend so much time thinking about how we would have that conversation. Do we disable the chat? You never want to disable the chat is now enabled, but it's, you want to
Not
let
on
people be
purpose.
able to
I was
voice
not trying
those
to silence
concerns.
anyone.
No, it cracked me up because I was just thinking we had a conversation about disabling the chat for a meeting. But yeah, so you want to keep it an open conversation and try not to, mold your event into the safest space possible. Make it at everything that you want it to be, but then come in with those backup slide decks, in your head where you're able to answer some of those tough questions, or have someone there that can answer some of those tough questions.
Thanks for those approaches. I think the welcoming conversation, I think some people just want to be heard. And to Katie's point, validate where you can, find common ground where you can, and push forward. So NEI has a ton of resources on its website on how to have conversations. We do a lot of research on, not to over formalize how you talk to someone, but what resonates, what kinds of messages resonate with different types of communities. And we'll have some of that information in the resource document that we're going to send out after this as well. And we have two questions, well, they're comments because the comment chat was disabled, but they're in the Q&A. So I just want to make sure everyone has seen them, that Penn State, Zach mentioned that they have remote tour capabilities and are hoping to collaborate with any of the groups who are interested. I think he also put it in the chat as well, that he is, he's reached out to him, and they have an email there in the chat for how to engage with Penn State. And then also we have Jenna, who noted here that there's a nonprofit organization called InspireWI.org that works to connect high school students with industry partners. So that might not be everywhere, but it's something to look up. She notes if it's not in your area, to connect with them, or if it is in your area, to connect with them.
And I'd like to just add something with both of those. If you are, such as Zach or Jenna, if you're interested in sharing those types of resources through nuclearscienceweek.org, send me an email and I can get you in touch with my team member who runs the website, as far as this could be something under education, under resources. So people can go on, learn more about it, and anyone who goes to nuclearscienceweek.org could see, oh, I am able to take a virtual tour. So that's, or if they needed something such as what Jenna offers. The opportunity to put yourself on nuclearscienceweek.org is there. So that's just open to the group.
Okay, and I added my contact because I realized I didn't include it, and someone just asked for it in the chat. So that is my email. And there is one other question here relating to the first speaker. As an international who wishes to go deep into this field, what are some of the opportunities open to interested candidates? And I think you had raised your hand earlier, so if you wanted to raise your, or come off mute, or raise your hand again to maybe expand on that, so that we can answer it. Unless someone has something they'd want to add to that. I think they're maybe talking about different career options.
In all honesty, since it had mentioned the first speaker with me, one of the things I'm very unapologetic about is that my background, my master's degree, all of my studies and everything is museums. And so it happens to be my field is very much museum, but my mission is nuclear. And so that may be a better question from some of our other colleagues on here, as far as no matter where you are internationally, it might look different. So I will definitely lean towards other expertise on this.
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in. So we have a lot of international students and postdocs that come through our programs. I was at Los Alamos for almost 5 years before coming to academia. And depending on what end of nuclear energy you want to be in, there's a lot of work for foreign nationals at the national labs and within academia. I would say the space to focus on, of course, is civilian nuclear power. And within that space, there's fuels research that can be done. There's a lot of space that's open. Funding agencies like Basic Energy Science, National Science Foundation. There's really no restrictions on nationality for students and participants on projects, which is a lot of what any funded research is. And then I think some of the programs we've had, so like National Nuclear Security Administration, we've had grant programs coming from them where they do restrict it to US permanent residents and US citizens. But outside of that, it's pretty open. So I would say as a student, you want to look for mentors and professors that do very accessible research. So people that are doing fundamental science within this space, that are doing experimental or computational space that's applied to civilian nuclear power. And there's a lot of opportunities there within the US. Outside of the US, I'm not the best person to speak to, but there's, of course, a lot of great scientific work going on all around the world in nuclear energy science.
I would add to that, at least from the Westinghouse perspective, we have staff here who are from international, all over the globe. We have facilities all over the globe. So we really are an international company. And each year we have a large number of interns who come in, making it hard to get a seat in the summer, right? But we brought in a whole cohort of interns from Poland. So I would say, don't let where you're from limit what you can do. So go for it, apply to those positions that you want, and don't let being from a different country hold you back.
So we have 2 more questions. We have about 7 more minutes. So Christy is our chair of our communications committee for WIN. So she asks, how early do you start prepping for Nuclear Science Week? So those who are engaging in chapter activities, Selena seems to know where this question's coming from because she is laughing. So Selena, I guess I'll turn it to you first. How early should you start prepping for your Nuclear Science Week activities?
I would say it depends on what kind of event you want to do. If you're planning a school event, you really want to start right at the beginning of the school year, because the teachers are really planning their entire year in those weeks before school. One of the benefits of our program is they know that we're going to have it. So if you have it every year, they can plan, and that's what you want to do. If you're having something maybe that's remote, like we will probably do a career panel, I'll start recruiting for that now, but I would send that invitation to the schools now for that career panel in October. So if that gives you an idea of the timeline.
And I guess as a follow-on to that, for those who haven't done it before, how have you gone about even reaching out to the schools? Do you start with the principal? Do you start directly with the teacher? Do you find a parent who can get you an in? I guess, how is the best way for people who have not engaged with schools before to engage with them?
Well, first, I'd say if you have a child who's in school, that's an easy in, because you can talk to their teacher and they can give you the contact, and then you can go from there. If, say, you don't have kids and you're not in school, a respectful letter to the principal and vice principal usually is a good start. If you can identify who the guidance counselors are on their staff directory, they would be a good resource to email to. And they're always looking to partner with industry to give kids the best opportunities possible. So definitely reach out.
Yeah, I'll add to that. So I know, at the university level, we often have people within the university who reach out to the districts themselves. So in Texas, our districts are massive. There may be 20 elementary schools in a single school district, but you can get to their outreach and curriculum coordinator for the district, and then they can reach out to the schools for you. You may want to talk, if you're at a university, sometimes you have an outreach person within your university that has a relationship with that person because they're very busy people. But I would say you can reach out to the districts as a whole as well. And I'll say from my personal experience, going to my daughter's school, I was like, hey, I want to do this cool demo in my daughter's class because it was a fewer number of students. Everybody could do the demo right in front of them if they wanted to. And the teacher talked to the principal, and the principal said, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it equitably, and we need to do it for all of first grade, which was like 6 different classes. So I was like, all right, we're changing it up, and it's going to be this big demo on a stage. So I would say don't get too married to exactly what you want to do, because the school may have a certain way that they and have facilitate outreach events within the school itself.
To leverage them as a partner. Oh, Jennifer?
One of the things, this is not necessarily the schools, which everything that Elizabeth was saying, that's what we do for the museums as well, for the museum bringing students in. If you were doing an initiative for the community and it wasn't necessarily wanting field trips to come in, this is something that we've used for years at the museum, and it has been very beneficial for us. If you want to get to the students, there's a likelihood that in your community, they use Peach Jar, which is like a peach that you eat, peachjar.com. The museum utilizes this. It's free for us to set ourselves up on peachjar.com, and we're able to pick the schools. You have to pay in order to send a flyer, just a 1-page flyer to schools, whether they're elementary, middle school, or high school. And the district has to decide, do we approve or not approve this to go out? But that's something that it goes to every single parent at the schools that you pay for. So that's been very beneficial for us on family days and programs. So just a heads up if that's something that you want to look into.
That sounds like something I'd want to do.
Thanks, Jennifer. And Elizabeth added in the chat that your local public library is also a great resource. So starting there too might be able to connect you with those partners. Okay, we have 2 minutes. So last call for questions. I will note there is a question in the chat about having a bachelor's degree in mechanical and being a part of Professional Engineer Canada. How can someone get in touch with industry partners to get their career started? Slightly different question. And we do plan on, well, one, we want you to join the industry. Let's start there. We want you.
Academia.
You're in. 2, I think that's actually a good topic for an Atomic Ally webinar that we're hoping to connect with the wide-ranging possibilities that are out there in the nuclear industry, not just for trades, but maybe we can expand it to kind of the whole gambit of opportunities and how to connect you with them. I know every company in the United States, at least, is hiring and is interested in having more, growing the workforce. So maybe if there's a particular company you have in mind, connecting with one of the people here, we can connect you within our network. And all of us have chapters or sections at the companies around the country, so we can connect you with some of those people as well.
And this is kind of a generic answer, but I would say, don't underestimate LinkedIn, and, start following people. My students who are very social media averse kind of hated it first, but it is one of those things where the more people you follow, the more connected you get, the more aware of opportunities you may become, in addition to just connecting with those folks. And then the old school way is, of course, networking at conferences. If you're able to, conferences are expensive if you're having to do it on your own dime. So I would say, start with LinkedIn, look for different events, and yes, definitely leverage the network of folks here. We might have lost Caitlin.
Yeah, we might have lost her.
I think we have, but it is at 2:15 my time, so it's a different time everywhere else. So I think, unless anyone else has anything. No? Okay. Well, then I'm good to wrap this up. I think everyone else is, and we can go ahead, and Caitlin did a fantastic job, and maybe we'll hear from her if there are any last minute things to go out to the group.
I think all the attendees will receive a one-pager kind of summarizing the different resources that we talked about throughout this meeting too. So people can expect that to come.
Very good.
All right.
Thank you all. It was a wonderful time. Thank you so much. Oh, Caitlin, maybe there she is. We were wrapping up for you.
We wrapped up.
Yeah, we were wrapping up.
Well
We
done.
told them they should receive a one-pager with resources for them. And
Thank you. Yes, my internet went out very briefly. But thank you. I appreciate you all having my back in that. And yes, the one pager will be sent out as well as the recording. And we'll have this recording posted on the US Win YouTube, as well as I think ANS has somewhere to post it also. So please reach out to any of us if you have questions. Thank you for your participation. And we look forward to seeing all the events that you put on next month. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Caitlin. Thanks, everybody.